Hello and welcome to the Bombshells Diaries. I'm Laura Sherrill, the founder of Bombshells, and the Bombshell Diaries is where we dive into stories of women trying to lead their best lives. So today I have success coach Lisa Michaud with me. So introduce yourself, Lisa.
Hi guys, thanks Laura for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Lisa Michaud and I'm a success coach and speaker based in Vancouver, Canada. And just like you guys, I'm trying to live my best life over here too. So I'm hoping that some of the stories that I can share here today and our conversation with Laura is going to help guide you as well. And I know we're talking about people pleasing, which is a big one.
Yeah. So Lisa and I have known each other for almost 3 years now. We actually did a female entrepreneur course online, which is how we met. And we have been kind of like on and off, in touch with each other. And then a situation came up between Lisa and I where we were really focused on the impact of people pleasing. And I wanted to bring her on today to talk about it because I think it's something that so many of us struggle with. And even if we acknowledge it in certain areas of our life, it can come up in other areas where we don't even subconsciously realize. So I thought Lisa's story was just so powerful, and then how it ended up relating to her cycle. So I was going to open it to you, Lisa, to share just some of your story. It's okay to get vulnerable and share, you're in a safe space here.
Thanks, Laura. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to take you guys back a few months and tell you that at the time I had an 8-month-old baby. My life has been pretty great so far. I've been able to hit most major milestones that I wanted to in my life. I've been successful and a high performer my whole life. A straight A student in a lot of ways, president of my business student association, started a leadership conference. My husband and I have a real estate company, multi-million-dollar net worth, 6-figure jobs, businesses, all these things. And I had this moment in October and I looked at my life and I was like, man, I am still not where I want to be. Like there's been a lot of great things, but I felt like for the last couple of years, I just kind of plateaued. And for some reason, I just couldn't get over these things. I couldn't create the real success that I wanted to in my personal business. And I wasn't making the impact that I wanted to. And I just couldn't figure out what it was that was holding me back and keeping me stuck. At that point, I decided to do some soul searching. And there was a couple things that that were showing up for me. One of the things was that I looked at a week in my calendar and recognized that I had spent over 40 hours working on other people's businesses and had not even been able to spend 1 hour working on mine because I, quote, didn't have time. I looked at the people that I was surrounding myself with and I recognized that and this is going to sound maybe a little bit pretentious, but I want to say this from a really from a vulnerable place, which is I was always the smartest person in the room. I never reached out to people that were one step ahead of me or 2 steps ahead of me because I didn't want to bother them. And I always wanted to be the person that was helping others. And so I always tried to put myself in a place where other people could ask me for help. And whether it was, how do I buy my first property, or how do I start my own business, or how do I become a mother, or whatever those things are, I was always the one that was in the position to help. And what I recognized is that all of these things, the underlying piece was that I wanted to please everybody else. And it was showing up in all these different ways in my life. So that was where this journey started, was this realization that I have this deep, deep need to be liked and to make other people happy at the expense of everything that's important to me. And I don't know if anybody listening to this or watching this can relate, but I think a lot of women have. I've started this conversation, and Laura, you're nodding your head. Yeah. I think this is a really common thing, and I'm sure we can talk about this later too if we want to. But it starts from when we're little girls, and it's something that I definitely hold on to. And since that moment, have been on this journey of exploring where else is this showing up. And that's where insert Laura. Laura and I were having this conversation. It was an Instagram message we were having back and forth. And it had been a while since we connected. And it was like midnight here. I was overwhelmed and was still working and about to wake up with the baby soon, and messaging Laura. And I'm like, hey, hope everything in your life is great. And if you need anything or any kind of support, let me know. And do you want to share, Laura, what you wrote back? I wish we had a text.
So I am pretty good. I pick up on people's energy. So on my end, her communication came across like it didn't feel genuine. Like I didn't really feel like she I felt like she was almost like trying to offer her support to have me work with her professionally, where I would hire her as a coach. And so I like didn't really know where, like, that's what the energy felt like to me. So I just simply wrote back and I was like, I'm great, thanks. I was like, I'm not looking to hire a coach. And then, and I also, I think, was at a part of my cycle where I was a little bit more blunt in my communication, which is something Lisa and I have talked about afterwards. So it's like really important to know where women are at so we can even understand our communication and how it can come across. But I was picking up on this energy from Lisa, and it was causing me to almost be like short with her. So then Lisa, I forget what I don't remember if you took like a day or two to like sit on that.
I didn't, because so the me in like September, October, before I meet for the past 30 something years of my life, would have done one of two things. I would have been like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Like, I did not mean to come across this way. Let me do like 50 free coaching sessions for you to prove what an amazing coach I am. And all these things. Or I would have just slithered away and been like, she is a big bitch. And those are the two things that I would have thought. And here's the actual truth of what was happening in that situation. I wasn't even taking on one-on-one clients. I genuinely wasn't looking to work with Laura professionally. I truly wanted to be like, hey, you and I have helped each other out with our businesses, and we've seen each other grow and gotten to meet in person. And honestly, if from a place of service, if I don't know where you're at, but I've made a heck of a lot of mistakes. If any of them can help you, I'm here. And that's not what came out. So in that moment, I should have said this from the very beginning. I believe this people pleasing is a journey to understand it all and to see all the places in our lives where it comes up. I naively thought, okay, now that I've realized this in October, everything's going to magically turn around. It hasn't. It's just been layers and layers and layers and layers that it's like an onion or an ogre. I don't know, either one. But I recognized in that moment with Laura that this was a chance to actually peel back one more layer and get one bit deeper. And so I was just super honest with her. I was like, wow, that was really triggering for me, what you just said. And it brought up all of this shame for me, this shame. And I think I actually said all of this in a message, probably 6 messages. And I was like, I was like, this is something that I'm going to reflect on, because I first of all, don't love coming out of classes salesy. And there's another part of people pleasing in there too. Like sometimes I have a business, I have to sell. And we all, if we have amazing things to sell, we should be doing that. But I wasn't selling, and I was super triggered by the fact that Laura just shut me down. And I was like, well, she doesn't know me. How could she think that I'm just trying to sell her? I'm just trying to help. And I recognized, and I think this is really easy to do, is to always think it's like the other person, or inherently that there's something wrong with us. It's easy to go for one of those two options. And instead, I decided to use this as an opportunity to explore deeper and figure out what's actually going on for me. What are those things that are being triggered? And what was Laura's experience? And let's learn and just get better about this. And I have to say that just opened up this really beautiful conversation between Laura and I about people pleasing, about all the things that women go through in our minds, and then also tied it all the way back to cycle syncing. When I recognized it was that day, that midnight text message frenzy, and the next day that I was just super overwhelmed. I was ugly crying. I was like, I am a total failure in all of my life. Everything is falling apart. And 3 days later, I felt great. And I was like, okay, something is going on here. And it is just so perfect that Laura and I are having, we had this conversation. It was totally meant to be. And I could have walked away and we could have never spoken again. But here we are diving in. There's obviously a reason why we're doing this.
Right. And on Lisa's side, she was like mentally freaking out, feeling the impact, being really low on herself. And then on my side, like, I wasn't feeling that way at all. I had like moved on from it because I had said my piece. And, so it's really interesting to know like two sides of it. And so then when Lisa asked, like, even around the communication, I think I work out with women a lot on the communication they use, either within their business or within their life, because you can tell by the way someone communicates what their trigger points are. And I noticed, like, especially in the coaching world, like the online entrepreneur world. So for me, I was triggered by the word support. So Lisa was using it generally as a way to act of service and support me as a friend, as a fellow business owner. And I was picking up on support because I've had a lot of coaches online, like where I would make them as friends, and then they would always pitch to me to work with them in a way that never felt good to me. So I think I was triggered on that point. And I was just kind of thinking like, oh, another person that I generally like that's just going to like try to sell me, when it's like, for me, like, you know, we're also talking through instant text message essentially. So for me, that wouldn't be the platform to have that conversation. So I think I was just triggered on that point, and then would be more short in my communication because I was fed up with, you know, the way some people do operate their business online. So that was on me for then projecting that onto you and not being open and honest with you about that. So it's really nice that we ended up hopping on the phone call after that to just dive into it. And it was really great to kind of have that space to kind of clear the air and really understand one another, where we were coming from. And then even when you were talking about your emotional state, I asked, like, you know, where were you at in your cycle? And you like stopped for a second and you're like, huh. And then I think that's when you finally like came around to the idea of cycle thinking too, of like how powerful it is even in our emotional state, and how that, and now, you know, we can get into it in a moment, of how now that emotional state for you has become predictable at a very specific time of month for you. So not only can you see it happening, but you can begin preparing for it and then moving your life around to be able to support what you need, which I think is one of the best gifts that we can give ourselves, is just giving ourselves the space we need and when we need it. So it was really great to dive into that space. And I remember even telling Lisa, I was like, this to me is never saying that I would never buy a program from you or purchase your work or vice versa. Like, I feel like we're in the same space and in different markets. But in order for me to support your work, I actually would want to financially pay for your product or service, because I feel like that is another way of energy sharing. Like money, people shy away from money or think it's like bad. And it's like, no, I think it's another level of support for literally congratulating and supporting this person who has put so much into their work and so much into what they're doing. So like, of course I would financially reward her, especially if I'm going to be gaining something in return. So like, I remember even saying that of like, this was not like a bad thing of just, I would never consider hiring you one day, or it might never happen in the future based on what I said. It was just like, no, we totally understand. And like, for me, I'm not in the market right now. And like, that's okay. But that doesn't mean that sometime in the future I won't be.
I love everything you just said there. And I literally had tears in my eyes, because thank you for being so open and so just honest about this, because I think we all go through we all have these emotions. Everything that you just said, I also felt. My initial thought was, okay, Laura's never going to work with me. Laura hates me now. It was like, that was one of my thoughts for sure. Right. And then another thought was also recognizing that, okay, Laura is being triggered. So I bet you Laura gets a lot of these messages. I did think that. And I was like, okay, Laura's on guard, because that message and you know, it's all energy, all communication, all about where we're at in our lives. But like, that message at a different time may not have, or to a different person would not have triggered them. So I was like, Laura does have a trigger here. And a part of me also was like, well, wouldn't Laura ever support my business? Like, isn't that just a part of what we do? And like, she should see the bigger picture here. So these are all things that I could have, I picked up on certain things, and I could have used them to blame you, right? Mm-hmm. And just like you could have used a lot of your interpretations to blame me and be like, wow, Lisa doesn't actually want a genuine relationship. Lisa doesn't actually want to help me. And you could have been like, wow, Lisa's pretty sleazy in the way that she does business. All of these things that you could have thought, you could have actually just stopped there. And I could have just stopped there, and we wouldn't be having this incredible conversation. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. I've been able to break through that interpretation and ever continue to build our relationship, our personal growth, our businesses, and our impact to other women. So I just think that I'm going to give ourselves a serious shout out and a serious pat on the back for being able to get over all of our own, first of all, our own insecurities and our own shit. Being able, can I say shit? I just
yeah. Oh yeah, I swear all the time.
Okay. And also being able to, you know, release all of what I think your shit might be, right? And just come to like, okay, what is actually going on for me, and how can I show up as authentically as I need to in this space to feel good about whatever the outcome is here for myself, and not from a place of ego, from a place of genuinely caring and wanting to be a good human and a normal person.
Right. Right. And I think too, like, to go to our point on people pleasing too, I think one of the areas in terms of overcoming that people pleasing is owning your thoughts, your emotions, and like just being like, here's where I stand, here's what I believe, here's what's important to me. And I think that's something that all of us women struggle with, but it's really affirming and grounding for a woman to be solid in her emotions and her belief and to articulate that. Like so often we just bury it and we just think, oh, it's not important. I have to be a good mom. I need to be a good business owner. I need to be a good wife. I need to be a good friend. But we then, like Lisa explained, sacrifice everything about ourselves to be that to everybody. And like, I just don't think that that's how we should be. So I was so excited when you brought up, you were like, wow, this was a huge breakthrough. Like you helped me realize I have been people pleasing and it's been something that I have been ignoring for so long. And I at least was that and I told her, I was like, I think the universe brought us together and I just happen to be placed in your life right now to be the person to call you on it, to help you dive into it. And like, and to move past that and to be okay with owning that of like, okay, yeah, I people please. I've been doing that for years. Here's how I'm going to move forward and change now that I recognize it.
Absolutely. And to recognize it, it's going to be a process. You know, it's probably going to be conservative estimate the rest of my life that I'm going to be peeling back these layers. But this was a really big, like this was like the big Band-Aid that really hurts to rip off, to be able to go into a conversation like that from a place of honesty, as opposed to either from a place of like, wow, I suck. I did this totally wrong. Or like, or she sucks and she's not nice.
Right.
So,
and we were able to like see each other in a new light. And I think just have a new appreciation for each other as women too. And business owners. Because for me, like when I thought of that too, and after we talked, I was like, I would actually take that as a compliment if you wanted me as a client, because you would then believe in me, you would believe in my work. And so it's like, I would absolutely take that as a compliment. And so I definitely recognize that my energy was off based on my past experiences. And I was bringing in my past and projecting it onto you, which doesn't feel good from either side. And I think it's hard in the moment to recognize
you and like high five the crap out of you. So good. Like these conversations are what we need to have more often. And that's why I love that you have this community of balanced bombshells and this vulnerability to share that, because it's never just one person. It's both of us coming with both of our suitcases of crap,
right?
Unpacking them together and being like, all right, let's get the best of you and the best of me and let's go on this trip together.
Right, exactly. And I think like women have to be okay with that. Like, I feel like, we're all on our own journey. We all come to these realizations in their own time. And I remember when we were talking too, because we were talking about your business, and I was like, I think you're coming to this point right now because you're meant to up level in yourself, in your work. And in order to do that, in order for you to take your business to where you want it to be, the universe is telling you to clear this shit out. And like, you can't carry this with you. And like, I've noticed that when I first started in business too, like when I would do my written communication, I was people pleasing in my written communication. I was trying to please everybody. And like, if you're in marketing or business or anything, if you try to please everybody, you market to no one. And like, you're then not going to be successful. And I feared like pissing people off online. And I was just like afraid to be myself, afraid to share what I really thought, because I didn't want to piss someone off essentially. So like, it comes out, I think, in all of us in so many different ways, but like, we have to own that crap, be willing to let it go. Which is why like I was so excited to introduce you to cycle syncing, because that emotional dig that you feel month to month, is an opportunity to realize like, what can I learn here? What am I meant to let go of? What am I meant to release? And like, it was just great that we then had that interaction for you to be able to show up in that way consistently now, month after month, as you move forward, because life's always going to bring challenges. Business is always going to bring challenges. But that one time a month is going to come up for you predictably now, where you can deal with it and then shed it, so you don't bring it with you into the new month.
Oh, totally. I'd heard of cycle syncing a little bit in the past, and I was like, that's a really cool concept. One day I'll learn about that. But through our conversation, you were like, where were you in your cycle? I was like, oh crap, she's okay. This is real. This is the universe saying right here, right now, this is when you need to deal with this. It was really powerful what I was able to do. And you kind of touched on it, but I want to be super, really bring this home. I was able to look back at the last couple meltdowns I've had, like the ugly crying, life is over, I can't do this, I'm going to give up on things. I was able to link the last 3 months of those moments back to the exact same day or two in my cycle.
Do you remember where, was it right before your period? Or
Yes,
like,
it's
okay.
like a day or two before.
Yeah.
Yes, every single time. And I did not know this. And so let me tell you what I was doing in one of them. So I solo parent for 14 days at a time. So I have my baby, just me and her, for 14 days. And we don't have family that lives here. We don't have a lot of support. So I'm doing I am working in the mornings, during nap time, in the evenings. I'm running a household, doing the grocery shopping, all of the cleaning, everything.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my overwhelmed day falls right in the middle of my husband's been gone for a week, and it's one more week that I have to make it through. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't help. But I also, on some of those, one of those days, I was also hosting a mastermind in my house, and I was running everybody through this goal setting process. I was doing a Facebook Live because I do them every Tuesday night. It was a Tuesday night. So I was doing that. I had the baby. I was hosting this mastermind. I was facilitating it. I had one of my good friends was coming in. She's in the middle of a massive separation, so I was trying to support her emotionally. I had another mastermind member who was trying to come into the house. She was bringing her 2 little girls to sleep over here. So I was trying to make her feel welcome, the kids feel welcome, find her parking downtown. Her credit card wasn't working, so I was giving her my credit card. And I was like, I am spent. I am done. And I remember one of the girls was like, you need to ground. You need to get out. And I was just like, ground? What the F are you talking about? I can't ground. Are you look at all the stuff I have to do. I cannot do this. And it was 2 a.m., meltdown. And that was, but because I didn't know, I thought it was something wrong with me, right? I can't handle it. I can't do all this. I'm not good enough. I'm not on the ball enough. I'm not a good enough friend. I'm not organized enough. All of these things that I kept telling myself. And when I looked back in hindsight, I was like, whoa, I can actually handle a lot. Probably 27 days out of 30 or 28 days out of 30. It is that 1 or 2 days that I need to give myself some grace. And that alone has been such a huge shift. Last month, I was actually just last week was that point. I was in California at a conference. It was a 12-hour conference day, and even just that in itself, I was like, okay, that might be tough. And then I realized it was also going to be on that day, and I just released all other expectation. I was like, okay, for the day before and that day and the day after, probably nothing else will happen, and that will be okay. Anything that I feel like doing, great, amazing. But I'm going to give myself total grace to just go with it and be. And it was the smoothest, that in terms of emotion, the most leveled. And in fact, actually, it was a chance for me to up level and feel even better than before. It's, my skin, I'm not sure everyone probably won't be able to see this, but this is usually my bad phase. My husband comes home on these days. It's right after my period, and my skin just breaks out. It's everything I've been holding up and bottling up just comes out. Yeah. So my skin, amazing. Not a single, I haven't had a zit in 2 months.
When you posted that, I was like, oh my God, she posted on her Instagram that she had just started cycle syncing and just not even switching food, not even switching fitness stuff. You literally just took downtime for yourself, and your skin rewarded you of we don't need to be stressed out anymore.
Totally. And one of the things actually, Laura, that you taught me was to just release. And okay, on the surface, I don't necessarily know what that means, but all I have been telling myself for the last probably week to 10 days is probably once or twice a day, whenever I think of it, I am just okay, just release, let it go. Don't hold it in. And it's almost just this mental, it's this mantra that's just release, just let it go. And it feels like instead of bottling it all up till my husband comes home and my period is over, and I can blurt it all out.
Which
it just feels
love.
which I've just been able to release this little bit at a time, and just feels so much better. So that is absolutely incredible, and I'm just starting. I feel like there's a lot more for me to learn and a lot more for me to implement, but you've already changed my life.
Oh, well, I appreciate that so much. And it was just so amazing the way that we were able to come together to have those breakthroughs, because you helped me realize certainly my communication and how I came off, and then to be able to help you recognize a time in the month where your body was literally begging you to just take a break. And it's not and you've now realized that it's not you stopped living your life. It's not you said no to the conference and you didn't go to any sessions that day. It's literally a mental shift of just letting it go and not having that expectation on your shoulders that I think all of us women put on our shoulders, because we're meant to be doing all these things all the time. And cycle syncing teaches you nope, this is when I can push during the month, and here's when I need to scale back, and that's okay. And it actually makes you a better performer in your life. And hearing you talk too, I'm sitting here and I'm I feel so blessed to have you as now part of the Balanced Bombshells community, because you're exactly the kind of woman that I created it for. Because I think we're so similar in so many ways. You're a high achiever. Like, you know, you can handle anything life throws at you, and you're going to be able to do it with a baby on your hip, while you're cooking dinner, while you're responding to an email. Like, absolutely identify with you. And I just remember thinking, like, how can I help women have everything that they want, but understand that they're going to have it all throughout the month, and they're not going to have it all on the same day. And cycle syncing was just such a powerful way to do that. And like, now that you can pinpoint your emotional, now I wouldn't even call it emotional. It's when your body is tired and has been working and doing all these things all month, and you need that 1 to 2 to 3 day period to just physically release. And just, I like what you said too, because I'll end up doing this every single month too, where I'm like, okay, here's what's on my calendar. I'm going to show up however I need to today. If I am going to work for a little bit and I can feel my body's feeling fatigued or resistant, I'm going to be okay with taking a break. And like, maybe I'm going to take a nap. Maybe I'm going to reschedule a call. Maybe I'm going to not show up for a live. Even though I do it every single week, it's okay for me to reschedule. And like, having that grace, because we can't be all the time. And I think too, your audience gets that, and your family gets that, your friends get that. And when you're real and genuine and authentic and not trying to please them, they actually like you more. You know what I mean? Like, they identify with you more.
And honestly, most people don't even care. They don't even notice.
Yeah.
What they do notice is that if you're not your best self, they do notice that. They do notice if I'm ugly crying, it's pretty loud. People notice. They do notice if I am short with people. They do notice if I am, like, you picked up on my energy that was like this really overwhelmed but still want to help and still want to do all the things energy. Like, they pick up on that, and they don't, and they don't, people really only care about how you show up a lot of the times for them, and they want you to be your best. And so people aren't paying attention if it's like, wow, she missed this 1 week of doing this, or we had to reschedule something. Like, there's not a police being like, you're not allowed to nap at midday. Like,
Well, especially when you go into business yourself. Like, I remember I had like a very huge realization moments when I was starting Balanced Bombshells too, because I was like, I cannot show up for this work the way I did my career, because I crashed and burned every single month and was just like so emotionally low, so emotionally drained, trying to do everything. And then I was like, I can't be of service to women if I don't take care of myself and recognize when I need to scale back. And I notice it a lot with women, even on social media, like from a business perspective, where you feel like you need to post like every single day or 3 times a day. And I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves to try and like be out there, and like, essentially it's a form of people pleasing, even from the business perspective, where we're trying to be all things. And it's like, I think if we weren't going to post for a little bit, like, does our audience even notice? Like, probably not, because there's a ton of people in their feed. So like, why are we mentally beating ourselves up about something that we feel like we have to? Like, we even just understanding the expectations that we're putting on ourselves, and not, it's also with our ego too. Like, our ego comes into play, which you kind of talked about, where it's driving like, oh, everyone's going to think this about us. And then that essentially helps drive our behavior. But really to stop and question, like, am I going to be less of a woman if I don't do this? Am I going to be an unsuccessful person in my work if I don't do this? Like, no. And like, people really don't care. Like, if you need to change the time on something, it's something easy. And this is when we talked about just owning it. You send the email and you're just like, hey, and honestly, this is how I work in terms of like my emails. I don't always explain the situation, because the other person doesn't care. I'm not going to waste their time and their energy on my shit story if they probably don't care. So I'm just like, hey, I know we were scheduled for 10. I'm going to need to push this till 9 a.m. or something. And everyone's like, cool, not a big deal. Instead of me coming and like, oh, I had to do this and this and this before getting to my point, that I'm almost essentially apologizing in my communication that I need to change something because I'm fearful that they're going to be pissed off about it. Yes. Instead of just like coming forward and being like, nope, this is what happened. Like, I need to change it for this. It's still happening, you know, like, and it's okay to do that with your Facebook Lives if 1 week you don't feel like doing it, or, you know, now you can plan around it of like, hey, I'm falling on this day, I'm going to do the live on Thursday instead. And it's cool.
I love what you just said because it's so true. Like you just have to say what you want and say what you need, and people genuinely are not going to care. I think, and this is tying back to people pleasing too, is I think so often we believe that people are going to come after us with like pitchforks and take us down, and they're not. People are just, most people just don't, they're so busy with their own lives that they don't have time to come hate on you. And if they do have time to come hate on you, they're not your people. They're just
right.
So it's just so funny. And that's something that I'm still exploring and learning. I really also should have said this in the beginning. I am not perfect in terms, like I'm not like, oh yeah, now I don't care what anybody thinks. Believe me when I say I'm still on this people pleasing journey and learning so much. So I love that you just said that, because that was just one more thing for me to adopt and do better. I also want to say two things I think are really important for any other high achievers listening to this around the whole cycle syncing thing. So I kind of had two pieces of resistance around this cycle syncing, if you will. So the first one was, is this going to be one more thing? Because I'm busy, you're busy. You know, I love that you painted that picture of me, baby on the hip, doing the cooking and the emails. I don't cook. You know, the kitchen is like it's just not my place. But I'm still doing a lot of things. And it felt like, oh my gosh, if I'm going to adopt this, I have to do it like 100% amazing, because I'm an overachiever, right? So I've got to be doing all the things. I've got to be having, you know, the collagen and this vitamin and then that smoothie and this cooking and this green food, and all that's got to be different. So I got to get the kale this week and is it called collard greens? See, I don't even know. Those, like, that's the other week, and like I don't even know where to buy that. It just felt like it was very, very overwhelming. And one more thing. And what I love, Laura, that you do, and what I found to be true about cycle syncing, is that it doesn't have to be this big overwhelming thing. It doesn't have to be huge. That mental shift, it has been enough to transform my life. Giving myself grace and permission is completely transformative and simple and easy, and it's not one more thing. So I think that's the first myth and resistance that I had, and maybe other high achievers are listening to this thinking the same thing. I want to just say it's a pretty easy thing. And like, if you want to overachieve the crap out of this, you can, but you don't have to.
It's going to help you achieve even more. Like,
So this is the second thing. I was like, okay, well, if I take a break, I'm not going to be as successful, or I can't just like take days off. Don't you understand? Like, these are all of the demands on my life. And maybe you're listening to this thinking the same thing. Like, yeah, but that's nice for you guys, but I've got big dreams, and I can't be taking time off here. And let me tell you that if you do this right, it's going to allow you to do all of those things that much better. It is going to allow you to show up as your best self for difficult times, because whatever amazing things you're creating in the world, and I don't know what your goals are, whether it's to improve your marriage, whether it is to start a nonprofit, or to run complete a triathlon, or scale your business, whatever that is, you need to show up as your best self to do that. And if you're always running ragged, if you're not listening to your body, if you are not being able to connect with your best self, you're just not going to be successful. So this is not like one more thing to overwhelm you. And this is not going to be something that's going to stop you from being successful. It's actually the opposite. It's a really simple tool. You can pick and choose parts that are going to work for your life and use them to be more successful in every avenue.
Yeah. And I thank you so much for sharing what you initially felt as you're resisting to it. Cause like, I feel like we naturally do that. We resist something new, especially when our lives are so full. So we think like, oh, I don't have time for that. Like, I barely have enough time to take care of myself, or I don't have the mental capacity to learn one more thing. I mean, especially in your career, like I have gone through the mental burnout too, of like, I just can't learn anything more. Like, I just can't add to it. And I think your resistance around the food part too. And so if I can debunk this for you and anybody else too. So there's certainly ways that you can sync your food to help to balance your hormones, where you eat like specific foods at the different phases, and they actually go based off like what your hormones are doing. But I did do that in the beginning, but I actually don't really, it's become more second nature now of knowing what foods might benefit me, but I don't stress about it, because once your hormones are balanced, as long as you're eating well for your body, your hormones are then going to be balanced. So I think there's this myth too around cycle syncing of like, oh, I need to be so specific on these foods, and oh, I'm supposed to be eating this here. And like, that's really not the case. Like it can help, and it can help improve your body, but it's not going to be like the deciding factor as long as you're eating foods that are right for you. And that goes into like clean eating too. Like, that's not saying you're then eating all this ice cream and cookies and stuff all the time, because like that's that's no good to anybody. But I love that you brought up the resistance too, of knowing that it can be so easy to incorporate and not be one more stressful thing, because it's not meant to be. It's actually meant to help improve your emotional health. It's meant to improve your physical health, because you're now understanding how your emotions are even just kind of going on this wave throughout the month. And I think it, like for cycle syncing for me, I've been doing it for over 2 years now. And like each month I learn something new. So like, I feel like my work is never done. And like, I'm constantly learning new things about my body or my health. And, you know, depending on if you have another baby, like you're going to have all these different seasons that your body changes, but now you're giving yourself that grace and permission to flow with it. And like, that's how a woman's body wants to be. We want to be in the flow and just kind of going with the flow. And I think high performers and high achievers like us, like we hold too tight and we're like, no, like these are my goals. This is what I have to do. But if we don't shift a little in, even in our goals in terms of life, we don't always achieve them because like we didn't allow for space for something even better to come out. That was something I had to work on definitely myself, to be like, okay, I need to let go here and I need to show up and do whatever needs to happen for the goal, and I'm not even going to dictate it. I'm going to allow life to help carry me through, and I'm going to trust the process. And like cycle syncing helped me find that, because it's like, yeah, just knowing when to scale back.
Yeah, I love that. So good. And thank you for debunking that myth too, because it's so easy to think that we're all busy. We got lots going on. So great to hear that it just becomes second nature. And I'm sold, Laura. I'm in 100%. I love what you're doing. I think what you've taught me has already transformed. I just am, every month I'm like, okay, if I can, and I'm so glad that you just said that 2 years in and you're still learning. I feel like that's where I'm at with cycle syncing, is each month I'm just going to do like one little thing that will make a bit of a difference. And it's the same with people pleasing. I'm like, okay, one more layer, one more piece, one more really raw, uncomfortable moment, one more realization of where this is showing up and where this can serve me. So there's such a parallel there. And it's so important to understand that we're not just going to flip a switch on everything in one night. But every day, for us to be our best selves, to be achievers, we have to be taking one step forward every single day in just the direction of where we want to go.
I like too how, you know, like now that you're noticing the emotional shift too, I'm wondering if you're going to start noticing even less of an emotional dig by realizing at that time, like, are you more emotional in the months that you've been people pleasing more versus like the months where you might not feel as emotional because you were owning yourself essentially, and you were taking more space that you needed. And so that's like your body's way of like rewarding you, because you're not giving so much energy to other people, which I think every woman does. Like we are so willing to sacrifice ourselves for the greater good. And we are, you know, I feel like we've been taught to be the good girl. We've been taught to ask permission before we can go to the bathroom or do something. And if you like look at studies between girls and boys, like boys don't ask, they just go out and do. And like even in the workplace, like men will, I forget where I read it, but it's like women will only apply for a job if they meet like all of their requirements.
Yes.
Men will apply when he meets some of them. And it's 60%.
Like men will apply at 60, women will apply at 100.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I was just like, that's unbelievable, of just even the way, I think it definitely comes the way that we're raised. So we definitely have to go against what's been ingrained in us.
Yes.
But if we're open to challenging it, especially being high achiever, it's like, it's just another milestone to hit essentially. And just know like, okay, as a woman in business and in my career, who's either a mom or whatever you are, like it's going to help you achieve even more, and not only achieve it, but feel happy, feel emotionally balanced, feel not overwhelmed or stressed out. Like I have so many friends or family that, you know, because I run a business now, they're like, oh, you must be so stressed out, you must be so tired. And I'm like, no, because I don't overwhelm myself. I don't overload my schedule. And like, I know what I can handle now, and I know what I can't. And I'm okay with not being the best every day. I'm like, that's okay. And I'm okay, like taking a step back. And I feel like we've been too caught up on that busy train that I think leads us into people pleasing, because we're constantly on that train without giving us that permission to step away and being like, it's cool for me not to be here 100% of the time and to be everything to everyone all the time. Because like that's leaving us burnt out, exhausted. I mean, super crappy hormone symptoms that, you know, like you noticed it with an acne. Other women will notice it in like a really crappy period or bloating or weight gain, like all of these things is your body telling you to stop and pay attention. Those are just the physical signs, but emotionally, you know, we know.
Yeah. And it's so true. You know, us women, I really do think we're amazing. We're super, super women sometimes. But we give up so much of ourselves to other people. And that's something like I'm all the time trying to figure this out. And I think if anybody's listening thinking like, how do I actually get started on this? Are you okay if I just share a couple of things that I did that may help?
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Like one of the things that I've done, cause like, I was like, okay, great. I'm a people pleaser. Now what? Like, do I just try and piss people off for the fun of it? Like, is that what I do? What do I do? And a couple of really simple things that I've done. One of them is whenever I find myself being resistant to something. And so that might mean like, for example, in that moment with Laura, I'm like, ooh, this is an awkward conversation. I journal about it. And if you're a writer, I never was really, but I love my journal. You can also, you know, have a friend or even just talking it out, man. Like, I'm a coach. I probably shouldn't tell people this, but I think it's good to know. Like just talking to a wall is almost as effective sometimes as a coach. So like literally find your favorite wall, find a mirror and talk it out. Right. So because always when you are finding that resistance or you're finding like a sticky point or you're feeling overwhelmed, it's a chance for you to dig deeper and figure out what's actually going on, because probably it's related to some of those things that we learned growing up, which is I need to ask permission for this, or if I do this, that person won't like me, or this person won't approve. And a lot of the times those things just aren't true, but the things that we believe. Another thing that I found being really helpful is just practicing speaking what I really think. I've noticed on, my gosh, every single level that I just hide what I really think, whether it is somebody asking what restaurant do you want to go to or what kind of food are you craving tonight? And I'll just be like, oh, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Where I'm like, really? I'm like, I want the tacos. I would love, please tacos, please say tacos, please say tacos. But I won't say it because I'm like, well, I don't want to be like that person who always has to have it her way. And all these things in my head that I think, so just practicing doing little things like that, or, you know, saying, hey, would you mind if you listen to my radio station in the car right now? Or just, heck, even just turning it on and people probably won't care. But showing up unapologetically in all of these parts of our lives. And it can start with the little things, which is the radio, the food that we're eating, you know what, I'm going to go home now because I'm actually tired, or I'm not able to come to this 1-year-old birthday party because I have other things happening. But it's like a muscle. We have to build that muscle of being honest, first of all, with ourselves about what we truly want, and then getting brave enough to actually ask for it and do it. So that's been a really big thing for me. I hope that those kind of ideas help people, because it is a muscle. It's something that we have to continue to explore and dig into our crap and be willing to challenge it, and then also build that confidence and that muscle of saying what we really want and what we need.
Right. Especially even with like, and you know, you might notice this too, and this might help in your decision making as you move forward. Like if people ask you something for your opinion, they generally don't want to make the decision. So if you like have it in your heart, you want tacos, like say it, because they're going to be like, cool, I've been thinking the same thing. You know, like, yeah.
So many times. Okay, so tacos is yes. In my head, I'm like, okay, I don't want to be the girl who always gets her way. What if they don't want tacos and then put them in an uncomfortable place? What if the tacos are too expensive for them? What if like all of these stories, which is exactly the same, Laura, as how our conversation started, which was I'm having all these stories and you're having all these stories about me. I'm having these stories like Laura hates me now. Laura doesn't believe that I'm a good coach. Laura thinks that I could not help her. Laura thinks I'm sleazy, all of these stories. So whether we're talking about the tacos, or whether we're talking about our identity as a business owner, or whether we're talking about our relationships, our marriages, the way we show up as mothers, the way we show up as entrepreneurs, we're making up all these stories in our head. Yeah. And 99% of them aren't true. 100% of them are not my responsibility.
Right. Exactly. And like most people, like, honestly, at the end of the day, don't care. And we're literally just building it up in our heads. Mm-hmm. So a book that really helped me, and I don't know if you've read it, is Gabrielle Bernstein's like 40-Day Shift for like Miracle.
Oh, is it Miracles Now?
I think so. Yeah. That helped me so much of own my shit and just like really take ownership of it and like kind of peel back the layers of like the root cause of why I was feeling that way. And it was uncomfortable going through it because that's what happens when you're realizing stuff that you've buried for years. But it helped me definitely recognize my trigger points in some situations that I needed to up level in my life that were definitely emotionally keeping me stunted. And it's just interesting the stories that can kind of come up with it. And something that I've tried to do in my life is, and now especially that I do in Balanced Bombshells, is teach women that it's okay to be selfish. Like, it's actually like imperative for your health, because I will be pretty open. I'm pretty selfish, and I've had a really hard time sometimes in relationships because, like, yeah, I want to get my way, but I have to know that it's a give and take, and I have to be willing to bend. But I'm that person where if you were to ask me, where do we want to go? Like, I'm going to sit there and I'm just going to look up places, and I'm probably going to have like 2 or 3 suggestions. And I usually don't try and dictate it, because I do know that my energy can be too like dictative sometimes. So I'll come with like options of like, oh, if you want Mexican, or if you want, Italian or whatever. Knowing, because I have to soften my nature, because I'm very the opposite, where I'm just going to be like, no, this is what I need. But then I also have to recognize that, you have to take other people's consideration into the account. But I just love the taco reference too, because like it's such a story in your head of like where you want to eat, and then you not sharing what you generally would like to eat because you don't want to take away from somebody else. And you're almost like waiting. You're essentially you're waiting for permission to be you, essentially, because then they are probably like, well, I don't want to make the decision either.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Absolutely. And all the stories that we build up in our heads, I think it's just important to push them to the side, recognize that they are just that, and that it is okay to want the tacos, to say you want the tacos, or to say, no, I can't come to that, but thank you very much for the invite, and still be gracious about it. Or, hey, I need to move this meeting. I'll see you at 9 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. These are all okay things. We're not talking here about, killing babies. We're not talking here about leaving a patient on a table in the middle of open heart surgery. We're talking about things that we are making way bigger in our heads than they really are. And so it's important, I think, to bring that perspective and recognize that like we've really only got this one life, and we've got to show up for ourselves. Nobody else is going to live with our regrets if we don't speak our truth, if we don't go for what we want in our lives. Nobody else. It's us that has to live with that regret.
Exactly. You're living with the consequences. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I just imagine a world where women just show up and they do what they want to do. Obviously gracious, obviously taking into consideration other people's feelings. It's not all of a sudden being like mean, but knowing that it's okay to have what you want and to go after it and to get it, because I feel like that's what's something that internally causes us emotional overwhelm, is not taking action on what we truly want. And so something with cycle syncing too, like you have a pretty crappy period and a pretty crappy time right before your period if all month long you haven't been taking action on what you truly want. And your body and your brain are trying to get you to make the connection, to like turn inward and realize that so you can move forward. And if we constantly just bury it under the rug, we're going to keep getting emotional, and we're going to keep having that emotional upset. And like, it really does keep getting easier the more you show up for it. Like now, every time before my period comes, I'm like, okay, what am I meant to learn? What have I been not paying attention to? Like, what do I need to clear out? And like, the other day, literally cleared out my closet. So I got rid of like 2 bags of old clothes. I'll clear out relationships no longer serving me, including friends that I might be trying to carry with me, but it's clear like, that was a friendship that was only meant for that time of my life, and it's okay, even though it can be super emotionally draining. And just really showing up and being like, what am I meant to let go of? So this next month, this new month ahead of me, I can show up the way that I need to and not carry all this baggage with me, because clearly I'm being weighed down by it now. And like, I've noticed too, like women start getting excited for that. They're just like, okay, what can I clear out, instead of, oh crap, my period's coming. It's like, no, cool, this is coming, an opportunity for me to do even better like next month.
I love that. And I think that probably speaks to every high achiever listening to this. You're like, yes, I'm in. I think that's such a great perspective. So I'm so glad you shared that. That's so great.
Yes. So I want to thank you so much for joining me on the Bombshell Diaries and being so open and vulnerable and talking about people pleasing and your experience with cycle syncing so far. I truly respect you as a woman, as a fellow business owner, and just love what you're doing out in the world. So where can we find you online?
Oh, first of all, thank you, Laura. That means so much coming from you. And I honor and trust you. And I know that if you didn't like what I was doing, you would tell me that. So here's another really powerful thing is that if you're not a people pleaser, your words really come across as genuine because they are, because you're not afraid to say what you really think. So that's another amazing benefit of getting rid of the people pleasing is that what you actually say matters and is meaningful. So thank you. I received that. And I really appreciate that. If anybody wants to connect, I am mostly active on Instagram. That's my favorite platform right now. And you can find me at @li_Michaud, which is MICHAUD. My website is lisamichaud.com, and Facebook, I'm Lisa Michaud Coach on there. And I run a community all about taking your big dreams, turning them into goals that you'll actually achieve. So this has been, cycle syncing is one of the ways that I've been doing that in my life and leveling up. So Laura, I love the work that you're doing. I think more women need to hear about this, learn about this. It's something that I'm sharing. I've already shared, and I'm going to continue to share with my community, my clients, because it's making a difference. And us women, we need to stick together, support each other, and listen to ourselves to get the life that we want. So I love that you're sharing this. And thank you so much for having me be part of this conversation. Thank you for shifting my whole relationship with my cycle and turning it from like one more thing to do to one more thing I'm very excited to do that makes me more successful in every aspect of my life. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, of course. And it's just so nice because like, that's exactly how I felt about it when I got started. I was just like, oh my gosh, like I have been held back so much of my life. Like, wait a second, imagine, especially knowing what you can do without cycle syncing, imagine what you're going to be able to achieve now. Like, that's why I want all women to know about it. Cause like, imagine every woman doing that. Like we're already unstoppable and untouchable. Like, I think like sometimes too, the universe needed women to have these hormonal and emotional upset because they knew that we would overtake the men so quickly. Like no offense to them, but like, you know, like we're already pretty high achievers with that stuff physically going on with our body. So it like, yeah, it's just amazing what can happen when you finally release that. But I'm going to share all of your information in the comments below so people can be able to just directly click and go directly to your Facebook or Instagram and your website. She's got amazing stuff going on. If you've ever been looking to take your grand dreams that you've always wanted and you don't know how to get there, Lisa's the girl to go and how to put that into action. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Bombshell Diaries. And you know, if you like what you saw, like, comment, subscribe, and share this with your girlfriends. So we'll talk to you soon.